Due to their content, some video games really need parental monitoring. But have you ever used video games as a babysitter? Today I will share with you the risk or negative effects of allowing your children to play violent video games and discuss possible alternatives. My statements and references in this speech are based on research from the Richland Online Library. First, I will reveal how violent games can negatively affect children and young adults. Next, I will tell you how some teachers are encouraging children to play video games with a purpose. Lastly, I will explain other alternatives to violent video games. The increase in the time that young people spend playing video games and the increase in their violent content have made video games a topic of concern. Much more controversial than the educational value of some video games is the possible role that violent video games play in the increasing aggressive behaviors in children, teens, and young adults. According to the article, quote, violent games can desensitize players and increase aggression. Researchers found that in a laboratory setting that more consecutive days that children played violent games and the less compassion they showed and the more aggression they demonstrated. When discovered by media outlets after the shooting at Columbine High School in 1999, the shooters Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were errant players of video games Doom and Wolfenstein 3D. The games were immediately targeted by some for at least a portion of the blame for the massacre. Within the same article, the author provided the option that it is plausible that some mass murderers develop or increase their rage through the violent imagery of video games, leading to planned shootings in real life. On December 14, 2012, Adam Lanza, a 20-year-old from Newton, Connecticut, entered Sandy Hook Elementary School and killed 26 students and staff members before ending the violence by killing himself. While there is no specific proof as to the motivation for the crime, it was found that Adam Lanza regularly played a computer game called School Shooting with the goal of the game for the player to kill people in a school. In the article Video Games, the author references a study by Craig A. Anderson from 2003 in the Psychological Science Agenda showing that there is sufficient evidence to conclude that video games increase violent behavior. This study concluded that violence in video games is not notably associated with increased aggressive behavior and thoughts and decreased empathy behavior. In addition, a 2015 study by the American Psychological Association determined a link did in fact exist between playing video games and an increase in aggressive behavior and decrease in sensitivity to real violence. This article also mentions that the violent content of video games has caught the attention of Federal Trade Commission, FTC, by restricting the marketing of mature rated products to children and clearly indicating rating information. Though there is no documented proof that violent video games cause the horrific action, many people have looked for options to these types of games. The use of video games is becoming increasingly common in classrooms and other educational environments. A study published in April 2009 edition of Educational Technology and Society shows that computer-based video games may be able to play an important role in the formal education of young people. As mentioned in the article, quote, video games, some teachers use them to teach about math and reading, citing games such as Minecraft EDU and SimCity EDU due to their ability to hold students' interest. This same article continues stating, quote, as many educators felt that children were being tested too often, video games came to be viewed as more effective educational tools. There are also other possible educational benefits as suggested by research Craig Anderson, chair of Iowa State University Department of Psychology, Horner M. and Horner K. 2010. He bought his son a copy of a flight simulator game with a realistic joystick and foot pedal. His son spent many hours learning to fly, leading to enrollment at NASA summer camp and enrolled as a pilot on a space shuttle mission simulator. Anderson continues in the same article by stating that, quote, in a study at the University of California, Santa Barbara, diabetic children who received a video game showing them how to better manage their illness had improved blood sugar control and fewer emergency room visits. One of the concerns that parents may have about children playing video games is the lack of physical activity involved. A new generation of video games may relieve some concern that parents may have about physical inactivity. While playing video games, as discussed in the article Video Games, Nintendo released a Wii Fit game that was solely dedicated to fitness. One example is a game that is played using a device called a balance board for players to stand on and do exercises such as yoga, strength training, and aerobics. Players are required to stand up and interact with their consoles to work out and dance, which gets users' hearts pumping and burning calories. The article continues to explain that even video games for cell phones could be used for physical fitness. Pokemon Go, the game became a global craze July 2016, was appreciated by many for encouraging players to engage in physical activity. Honestly, when I began this research for this speech, I never thought that I would find so much information on the impacts of video games on our children and our society. First, I told you how violent video games negatively affect our children. Then I told you how video games can be used for educational purpose. Lastly, I told you about the positive health effects of playing interactive fitness video games. Now I ask you to pledge not to buy any violent video games and instead invest in your children's future. Thank you.